incredible young men. You get to see something that's very rare in this country. Three generations of black men chopping it up. So I'd like for my co-hosts now to introduce themselves.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tolly Patterson. I represent that middle age group of young men, young professionals. So sit back, relax, and welcome to the code.
And my name is Dwayne Lloyd. I cannot believe that our wonderful pastor Hansy Green referred to me as young, but I'll take it. I represent those 50 somethings, that artistic group, and just enjoy yourself. And we pray that you be blessed by something you heard today.
Well, just like always, young is relative. I represent what we call the club crowd. We don't even put numbers on it no more. We just put but today we have a really fascinating topic. We're going to talk about some of the discrepancies in black men and health and why we as a group are trending so low as it relates to death rates, disease rates, et cetera, et cetera. You guys got any ideas on that?
Elders first.
Well, we were kind of just touching on a little before. I mean, there's a stigma amongst black men that we don't trust doctors. We don't trust the doctors. We don't trust the medical community, particularly because of the Tuskegee experiment. That 40-year period where they experimented on black men and putting syphilis in our bodies just to see how it would respond. So, I think there's a mentality amongst black men. It's like, nah, you ain't gonna do me. No, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I think because of that, our mortality rate suffers, our overall health suffers. And really, I was noticing too, I was reading some information about this one we got we're going to talk about today, is that single black men suffer a little more because they're less reluctant to go go to the doctor and see what's going on. Whereas married black men, their wives are like, no, you're going to the doctor. That little aching pain that you got or whatever's going on, that cough, whatever it is, wives have a tendency of pushing their husbands to get looked at, but single black men, it's kind of like, nah, I ain't going. I'll be all right. Rub some dirt on it, walk it off. That whole sort of mentality.
I think that we don't go to the doctor. There's a multiplicity of or multi-range of reasons, but I think most of it is being ill-informed and relying on the various systems that they're supposed to help us. They harm us. And so speaking to the Tuskegee experiment, you're talking about 40 years where they tested penicillin as a cause, as a cure so they were literally injecting African Americans with syphilis to see how resilient our systems were. If you go all the way back to the study of gynecology, that was something where the doctors of that day were using live specimens, because at that time you didn't have sedatives and things to like knock you out, where they were literally working on African female slaves as they were alive because they were property, to figure out how the body and the system works. And so we have African Americans, men in particular in this country, have a very strained relationship with every social structure, whether that's medicine, police, government, whatever it may be. And we are not a fan of going in. I think that doctors always overlook our pain. I went in a couple months ago because my knee got hurt. And you're talking about a $250 deductible for a man to walk out, take a step, so go do all this stuff, to look at my knee, not test it, not take an x-ray of it and just say, oh, it doesn't look like it hurt. And I looked at him like, what you think and what I feel are not the same. Give me another doctor. Well, give me another doctor. Because at this point, I'm telling you that it's hard to walk and my knee is swollen. I know why it got swollen. I'm an athlete, but I'm telling you that it pops and it never popped before. So they want to give you, we'll take this ace bandage, rub some icy hot on it, and go home. And then you get this bill for $4,000. No.
Yeah, I think that is a problem. I know that as a pastor, I've had many battles with the hospital system and how Black people in general are treated in the hospital system. It's a whole devaluing of life that occurs, particularly when they're older. once you reach a certain age, it's almost like this mentality of you've lived long enough.
Yeah.
And you should be satisfied. And I think that creates a distrust in the system. I know I have a distrust of the system. There's just so many pieces I don't trust. I question everything. Often the relationships become very adversarial. Uh, and even here in Indianapolis, there are hospitals that have reputations of treating Black people differently. And so I think that, we as a people already have an inherent distrust built into our culture.
Right.
And then when you put yourself in somebody's hands like a doctor, that can really be troubling.
Yeah, yeah. It's one of those things where it's that proverbial catch-22.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ain't going to the doctor, then something that could be wrong, you'll never know about it. And if you are, it's like, it's almost like pick your poison. You know what I mean? And it becomes problematic, and then unfortunately the mentality is passed down from generation to generation to generation because very few have that good experience with the whole medical community. You always got a cousin or somebody that has something go wrong. They be like, nah, I ain't, not me.
Well, and a large part of it is economic as well, because I know as an entrepreneur, there were many years I did not have health insurance. And so I didn't want to know if something was wrong, because then that could prevent me from ever being able to get insurance. So it was almost like until I get insurance, I don't want to know if something, because when I fill out the application, then I'd have to put the truth on there. And so that could be a downward spiral as well, the financial ramifications of it.
I mean, if you're a young professional, like me, I'm not married yet, and I heavily emphasize yet, because you like right now, my mom is real big on go get a checkup, go get this, go get that. And I'm a workhorse, I'm a grinder. So I'll push through. Excedrin is everything, pop in and you get it. But not knowing that your body builds up a resistance to those types of things. And so over time, my body starts giving me signs like, heavy headaches, you're dehydrated, you sleeping a lot, and your body's trying to say, hey, and for me, I can physically be sleeping, but my mind is running all night. And so what I think another thing with the passed down from generation to generation, you also have those experiences that you see, like you have celebrities who are African-American, like Serena Williams, most notably. And I believe it only happened because her husband is Caucasian or Italian. She went into the doctor and had severe pain in her abdomen area after having her child. And the doctor told her not to worry about it. And her husband was flying in from overseas and walked in and saw his wife, and her skin had got lighter and started snapping and was like, y'all gonna fix it. And it happened. There's another case where a woman here who was a doctor had a baby, was internally bleeding. I think it's some hospital in New York. Literally, this woman was internally bleeding for 10 hours. They let her sit in the ER, and her skin kept on changing color. By the time they opened her up, her blood was all under all her organs, and she died instantly. And that went to Capitol Hill to change the laws and codes, because what ends up happening is there's this mystery that Black people can take more pain than anyone else can. Like, we can handle it. Like, we're resilient. And I was just having this conversation on Thursday. Resilience has nothing to do with the fact that there's a reality. We don't want to be stronger than everybody else. We don't want to be, able to handle. We didn't ask for that. If any other race would take and trade spaces with us, whether that's the wealth gap, the health gap, whatever it is, immediately, then have at it. But there's this misnomer that we're able to take more, and we've learned through history how to do more with less. And so that contributes to this factor that we're in right now.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to Western medicine, it's also like this concept that they just want you to accept what they say without questioning it. And that's the fight that I've had. In fact, I had one fight at a hospital here where the head of surgery brought in like 30 doctors and said, because what you're saying to me, I've been trying to tell them forever. And he said, I very seldom find somebody articulate enough to make them understand.
Wow.
And the arrogance of the system. So like this one doctor, I was fighting for my mother-in-law, and he said, well, I'm just waiting for her to crash.
Wow.
Because we didn't do exactly what they said. And I told him, I said, sir, you get up and leave this room. And if I even hear you touch her chart again, I'm suing everybody in here.
Wow.
Everybody. And it came out, the point that he was trying to make, he was wrong. But because I believe because I was African American, he thought I was incapable of understanding advanced concepts in medicine.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And then when you look at that, and that goes all the way across the board too, because as you were talking about that doctor, my mind couldn't help but go to Dr. Sebi, the late Dr. Sebi, who was an herbalist, self-taught. He began to understand, the concepts of mucus and the effects on the body, and just started applying herbs to them. And white people lost their minds. He's a quack, he's this, he's that, and the third. And it's like, why do y'all? I'm starting to get a little angry here. Why do they think that we are incapable of understanding our own physiological selves? You know what I mean? It's almost like the people who want to be the mouthpiece of God for you, where you're incapable of understanding. So God sent me to tell you this about yourself. And invariably, what that does is that makes that person the God. And I think that's the thing that's really going on here. They want to be the God of Black people. They've displayed that throughout history. And let us tell you about your physiological self because you're incapable of understanding. For real.
Right. Oh, let me tell you now, this was a horrible example. So it was a Friday night. My wife and I were Friday night, we call our date night. We were about to go out, and I got a call from one of my colleagues saying, Pastor, will you pray? My grandson just coded. And I'm like, okay, I'm on the way. And so we jump in the car, we run over there. By the time I get there, they brought him back. So I go into the room. My wife is with the family. I go into the room. He codes again. But the thing that I'm noticing is, when you code, your heart stops. Usually when they bring you back, your heart is real low, like in the 40s, 60s, or in there. His heart is jumping back up to 120, 130. And I'm like, okay, this is strange. And so he codes again, they bring him back. And then we go to have a conference with the family. And the doctor said to the family, if he codes again, we will not be able to bring him back. And so the family's all distraught and, they're crying. And I said, just a minute. What do you mean you won't be able to bring him back? I said, are you saying you were not capable of bringing him back if he codes again, or you won't bring him back? And then, so now he's got the soft shoe because he lied. So now he's got to say, well, what we're saying is we believe at this point we're doing more harm than good. And I'm saying, so what you just said is you won't bring him back. And that's what you need to tell the family. It's not that you can't bring him back. You won't bring him back. And I said, the last time I checked the law, that's not your decision.
Right.
That's the family's decision. So now the family's all distraught because the mom is saying, well, if we hurt my baby, I don't want to hurt him more. I'm like, damn, what I am telling you, do not let these voices bully you. I said, now, your decision is you're comfortable releasing your son, then do that. He coded twice more that evening. They brought him back, but he lived for another 8 months.
Wow.
With a standard of life. Their opinion was, his value was like, okay, he had a disease anyway, so why fight this fight? Just let him go. But I'm sure his was major.
Wow.
I think that one of the big issues on the table, to me, with all that, when you talk about Dr. Sebi, I remember arguing with somebody on Twitter about him curing HIV and AIDS, and they were like, he didn't cure HIV and AIDS, and I'm like, so there's a whole bunch of documentation where the FDA took this man to court, and the judge didn't believe him, and they asked him to bring in 7 people. He brought in, I think it's 75.
70, yeah.
And they all were like, we're healed. I know this well because my grandmother's father was a herbal medicine doctor. And, for years you hear all this stuff and I'm like, okay, Granny's really, really, really reaching for truth, but okay, whatever. Until I get online and I Google Ples Griffin from La Center, Kentucky, who was a herbal medicine doctor. My mother has articles where he was treating Henry Ford and all these people. He's in the National Medical Museum in Maryland because he found the cures to do this, this, and this. And all of these wars were against pharmaceutical sales companies who believed that, pharmacy, the term pharmaceutical in the Bible translates to witchcraft. And a lot of people don't know that. It's like if you ever sit late at night and they got some new medicine, it's up and down, left and right, Kasana shop or something, and you hear what it's supposed to do, but you hear all of the other side effects like bad diarrhea, headaches, cramps, internal bleeding, your left eye might fall out, you might lose the bottom of the skin of your foot, you can't hear out your left eye, your hair in the very, very center of your head might fall off. And worst case scenario, death. What? I'll take my chances.
Yeah.
I'll take my chances with the medicine, because right now what you're telling me is that this medicine is going to do more harm than good. And so people in our community have always been socialized to take whatever we can get. The current generations now ask questions. I don't care what it is. If I'm on a job, I'm interviewing for something, people get mad because I'm like, excuse me, that doesn't make any sense. And I need you to elaborate a little bit more for me on that. Well, no, but you're not making sense. And before I sign on the dotted line for this and tell you that I'm capable or you can do this, I need you to explain every single possibility from 1 to 1,000,000. And I have time. I took the whole day off. Wow. Versus us just saying in generations prior, we had to take whatever was given, whether that was from the education system, whether that was from, the social. People wonder why now, like you see people who are eating various different things. That's what we were fed when we were bound. I don't eat chitlins. I don't know why people do. But there was a time where that's all we had.
Right.
You talk about people acting like animals. If you've been out in the field all day long, moving cotton from sun to sundown, and somebody takes a pot in a dirty, dirty little canister and throws oatmeal on the ground, and you ain't ate all day, you gonna lap it up like an animal. You created those conditions for us to live in. And so this is the reason why, if you think about health and how wealthy it is, every single study, which is why this vaccine is coming, these vaccines that are coming out now, why the African-American community is so iffy. Now you want to start with us for something, but you don't want to start with us when it's economic. You don't want to start with us when it's educational or academic or social, but you want to bring all your tests here. No, go test at Harvard. Go test in Hollywood and Bel Air and upstate New York and East Village. Go test there. Don't go to the HBCUs and say, oh, you guys are a disadvantaged community. We were disadvantaged before this. Don't test here now. Test them and let us know how it worked on them. And if we think it's good, then we'll take it.
Exactly.
Well, so you hit an important point. Let's talk about the whole eating dynamic to Black health.
It starts with, like you said earlier, the economics of it. You know, when you go in any hood in any city in America, you won't see it's a food desert.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing there that's nutritional. You go to the Save-A-Lots and you walk through Save-A-Lot, which is where a lot of people in a lot of hoods and a lot of cities shop. You walk through Save-A-Lot, all you see is chips and candy and processed meats and those sorts of things. And so scripturally, you know, when it says wisdom is the principal thing, but in all thy getting, get an understanding. What's the understanding about health? Health is threatened when things in your body become inflamed. What causes the inflammation? Bad eating. Why is there bad eating? There are food deserts and people don't have money to get food that will keep them from their bodies from being, the organs from being inflamed and the tissue from inflammation. Yeah. And so now you have this whole vicious circle going on, you know what I mean? And at the center of it is Black people's health.
Yeah, I know that I had a personal experience here. So there was one point I was trying to increase my life insurance. And when I took my physical, they said some things came back off. Well, it wasn't the major things like blood pressure and those kind of things. It was some of the other numbers. So I have a friend that's a naturopathic doctor. So I called her and kind of told her what was going on. She said, well, put them off for 30 days. We'll get you straight. And so she put me on a cleanse and she took me off meat. And her big thing was, you can't eat at any chain. And I'm like, well, I eat pretty good, though. I wasn't doing a whole lot of hamburger and stuff like that. And she said, do you eat at a couple restaurants like Applebee's and Fridays? She said, those are chains. And she said, not the food, it's the preservatives. Mm. So what she was explaining to me, she said, so when you buy broccoli cheddar soup, taste it same all across the world. How do you think that happens? She said it's because they cook it at a central kitchen, dump preservatives in it, and freeze it. And they ship it out to the respective stores. So she said in the stores, they're really not cooking it. They just unthaw it. Mm-hmm. Wow. And she said it's not the ingredients, it's the preservatives in the food that's wreaking havoc in your system. So in 30 days, I had lost like 26 pounds. And when I retook the test, my numbers were so good, they put me in the preferred company.
Wow.
And it was just removed. But now here's what's crazy. We don't know how to do that. Mm-hmm. Because she told me, I went in the store and wandered around for 2 hours. It's like, what can I eat? And she said, if it's in a bag or a can, you can't have it.
Wow.
And I figured out I didn't need to go past the little vegetable section. That was it. Just that little piece right there in the front. That was it. But most of us don't know how to keep those preservatives out of our system that's destroying us.
It's also a severe lack of understanding, as you're saying. In Indianapolis, per capita, we have a lot of food deserts. And so as gentrification is, becoming a very real thing in our communities, what you're seeing is years ago, you had something called white flight, where the communities around the IUPUI area, the Madam Walker area, the Urban League area were predominantly African-American. We've had a lot of mom and pop shops that we trusted. They did the best that they could. The city has now, it's a 20-year plan where they have moved to basically take back this area. Yeah. And so now you see Kroger's and all these other, Walmart chains and all these other things popping up in our communities. But if you go up Martin Luther King, where the Double 8 used to be, off of 30th and Martin Luther King, within a 20-mile range up Michigan Road or back in the downtown area, there aren't any grocery stores. I think the closest one would be off of 10th Street or off of 16th Street, or then the inner city. I think it's Kroger downtown. And so imagine being a single parent with 2 or 3 children, and you got to feed all of them. And so what ends up happening is you see a lot of our chains popping up, your Dollar Trees, your Dollar Generals. And so they provide, minimal things, and it's cheap, but it's doing more harm than good. Because in my quest to change the way that I eat, my eating habits, eating healthy is expensive.
Yeah.
And most of us who are African American like taste. So you don't want to just eat asparagus steamed with a pinch of salt. That ain't doing it for us, and so I think another thing, there was a Netflix movie that came out years ago called What the Health. That completely changed this whole landscape as well. When you talk about meat, processed food, processed goods. And so it's like, if you're going to take something, then we have to give something. And where we fail, the Bible says, no, as you just said, all that get an understanding. We don't understand. We know we can't do it, but what's the supplement? What are we putting in place of that? And until people know how to actually shop, go in, look at preservatives, look at calories, how your body responds, because the way that something may work for you, Pastor, my system may absorb it and kick it out, real quick. Like, I know one of my favorite things to eat is shredded wheat. I love shredded wheat. But I know shredded wheat cleans your system. Sea moss is another thing I was looking at the other day. Completely cleans out your, gets mucus out of your system. 30 days, I think it's 3 tablespoons a day. But we don't know that. And because it looks like, because when my barber first introduced me to it, and I looked at it, I was like, what are y'all doing with that? He's like, bro, I'm telling you, he said it has no taste. It may look gooey. He put it in some applesauce. I didn't even taste it. And he was like, me and my family have been doing this for like the last 6 months. And I'm telling you, my energy is up. My breathing is up. All those things. This is what our system needs. And the Bible talks about God putting everything in the earth for us. So this process stuff is killing us, and we don't know no better.
Well, I'm a fan myself.
I'm trying to become one.
And something else too, Toby, in addition to what you're saying, man. Again, let's keep it Bible, because we all 3 are men of faith, and we trust God's word. We trust His Logos word to minister to us in an utter and profound way. And so in Isaiah 58:8, when it talks about when we're on a fast and thy health shall return speedily, what happens is that when we fast, we give our systems a break. But most of us, most Black people, can only see fast as, well, I'm hungry. And I get that. I totally understand that. But just like any other well-oiled machine or well-run machine, some point you got to get a break. And the overnight period of fasting, because when you get up in the morning, the first meal you eat is break fast. You're breaking your overnight fast. That's cool. But if you can, and I've told people before, if you can just extend it just a day or 2 days or 3 days, you ain't gotta, people call me hardcore, and I don't trip. I am not, it's not something I'm able to do on my own, fasting 21 and 41 days. God gives me the strength to do that. It ain't something I even want to do. But when you start seeing the health benefits of it, here's how. I had a doctor in Fishers, Indiana. He told me, he's like, here's what happens when you fast. He said, when you give your system a break, he said, then the energy used for digestion is rerouted throughout the body. And the body is such an amazing piece of machinery that it starts finding things to fix. And that blessed me. And I was like, wow, so you mean to tell me? He said, so yeah, look at Isaiah 58:8. When it says your health shall return speedily, God has already given our bodies what it needs to repair itself, no matter what's going on. And when you understand that inflammation and mucus are the two heavies for sickness, it changed the game. I'll talk to you something about CMOS. So anybody who don't have that, don't know if they can see that. Irish sea moss. If you can, anybody who's watching, if you can, get you some. There is There are 103 minerals in the human body. Sea moss has 92. And that makes it a superfood. That makes it the superfood, in my opinion.
So that's the powder, right?
Yes, sir.
Is it better in the powder form or the liquid form?
I do powder because I'll put it. My wife can't take it like that. She'll put it. She has to have coffee or something right behind it to chase it because it tastes like the ocean. It just does.
Well,
and so
it depends on how you mix it. Like I put
yes.
it in a smoothie,
Mhm.
and I never taste it.
Yeah, and some people put in apple juice or orange juice, and that's what I like the water because it's like right to the head. You know, I'm that dude. I want it kicking in ASAP. So let's put in some water, you know, and get it cracking. But
yeah, you're definitely hardcore. definitely hardcore. We can definitely give you that.
Yeah. Now, Tavi, I mix my own, so I get it from a place in Jamaica, and it comes in. You just kind of rinse it, and then you soak it overnight, and then I put a little water in it and blend it down, and it creates a gel.
Mm.
See, y'all overly advanced. I need this stuff already preset, pre-prepared. I already, you know, I'm still, I ain't reached, you know, y'all status in life just yet, you know. So
see, the thing is,
quick damn.
But see, the thing is, we older and we trying to stay alive now.
Right. Yeah, the priorities start changing.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to be like y'all. Like I heard about it.
You know, I've got to at moments what I call the no reason at all. You know, it used to be like you'd wake up with your leg hurting. It was because you hooped yesterday and you came down and twisted it funny. Now there's some mornings I get up and it just hurts for no reason at all. I didn't do nothing. You know, so I have noticed, just like you were saying, when I made those adjustments and I think I got the inflammation out of my body, it changed everything dramatically. I mean, so literally, I had reached a stage in life where when I got up in the morning, I was sore.
Wow.
And it took about an hour and a half of moving around before the soreness went away. And when I changed my food regimen, I don't have that anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's interesting, like the times that I have actually committed myself to a full-on fast, like in every area, how your body changes it, like how your system, your mind is clearer, you know, when you give yourself a break. And when you were talking about that, D, the first thing that crossed my mind is a day off.
Yeah.
So if I've been working all week long, I'm fighting to get to the weekend.
Right.
Because the moment I'm checked out at 3:30, we done at 5, I'm just, you sit here like, come on. The moment that you can give your mind a rest to recharge that way. And I just think that when you think about health, we have completely mismanaged over decades, over centuries, our bodies and our systems. And, you know, I said it before, so I'm 38 and I was talking to a friend of mine and no one believes me that I'm that age. No one believes me. It's fascinating to me that someone could even think that I was 23 or 24. But internally, I know that those checkoffs that are starting to happen, like, you know, you start to feel, you know, you're sleeping a little longer than you need, you know, you need a little bit more energy. You know, I committed myself to it. I really got to do the work this coming year, beginning before the year, to get my mind prepared for all the changes so I can be here at 90 and 95 and 108 and so forth and so on because of health. I met a lady, she has, it's some type of, it's a watermelon seed, but they pull juice out of it. I don't know what it is, but it's designed to go clean out your liver. She said, you know, aspirin and all those things stay in your system for over 20 years in your liver. Had no idea. And she said, you know, you think you're taking it for a headache, but then it goes and then it damages your organs. And, you know, that's why you're more subjected to being sick and stuff like, you know, drink water. You know, typically most times a headache is because of dehydration, all these things. I'm like, wait a minute. I got to get with a natural medicine doctor, somebody who knows the system, who's not going to treat a symptom, that's going to treat a cause. Because our MDs, their understanding can only go to the brink of what science says. Sebi was dangerous to that system because he figured out how to use the earth and all the nutrients that are natural, even down to having a person take a tablespoon of a particular type of dirt and eat it raw for their system. And everybody's like, no, that's dangerous, that's nasty. No, but you walking around with people talking about they were completely cured of something. There's a story of a woman who completely coughed up a whole tumor.
Wow.
A man sneezing one out of his nose. Because the body found a way, once it got strong enough, your immune system said to reject it, and your system rejected it. Aspirin just covers it. You know, like you put on, I'm cold, so I just throw on a blanket. But the issue is the heat in the house.
Well, I think part of the issue is that, you know, I'm not disparaging any area of science, but each area is limited to what it can do or can't do. And sometimes we're too accepting of one area over another, and we don't look at the pros and cons and the benefits of other opportunities.
Yeah. And then too, part of it, I think, is it is incumbent upon everyone to know their familial medical history.
Yes,
you need to know if your daddy, like, I know, for instance, my dad, he died of liver and bone cancer. So for me, okay, let's pay attention to those particular markers. Now, granted, he lived a lifestyle.
Looks like
that did not it wasn't healthy the way he lived. You know what I'm saying? But at some point, I had to pay attention. Look, okay, I am his son, and it's not going to go like it went for him. But I need to pay attention to those things. And so many times, you have people who just ignore that whole thing. They ignore all of it, and so then something sneaks up on you, and now it's like, well, where'd that come from? But,
well, and from the spiritual angle, you know, this is not biblical, but philosophical. That, you know, the old saying that when the student is ready, the teacher will show up. And I know, like, for me, when I've been on certain quests with my health, the teacher had shown up. Like, the most significant for me was I had a friend of mine call and tell me about this doctor. And he was like, man, have you heard of him? I'm like, no. And he said, you really ought to check him out. His name is Dr. Wallach. Wallach. And I'm like, okay. I trusted this friend, but then I'm on Walmart's parking lot like a couple of days later, and this dude walks up to me and hands me a flyer that says Dr. Wallach is coming to town to do a lecture.
Wow.
I mean, just walked up and handed it to me. And so I went to see him, and like the stuff that he gave was just unbelievable, and how he traced the history of medicine and when certain lies were perpetrated. So his most famous book is called Dead Doctors Don't Lie.
Wow.
So his premise was, if a doctor's alive, he's lying to you.
Wow.
And so he began, and I am telling you, his stuff has made out, because he debunked all kind of fallacies that we would just accept as true. Like, for me, he told me personally, you got to eat eggs. And just for what you were saying, Dee, there's some things that had run in my family. You know, my dad had Parkinson's, and there's some different things like that ran in the family. He said, you got to eat eggs, and you got to eat egg yolks. In fact, he said, you do best to eat 8 to 12 eggs a day. I'm like, whoa, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that.
Wow.
But I have worked at least 3 or 4 eggs in a day. And I can tell you, within a week and a half, I could distinctly tell a difference in how I was thinking.
Wow.
My process changed. It was firing just like that. And he explained to me, he said, the yolk, he said, when you have Parkinson's, he said, like, if you have an electric wire, you have the two wires. He said, but they're coated because if they touch, they'll short out. said that the yolk of the egg is the best thing to coat those wires in your mind.
Wow.
And it still, he said, because Parkinson's is when those two wires touch and they short you out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, I do eggs every day, almost every day, and I can distinctly. But now you hear all this common knowledge that egg yolks are bad for you.
Yeah.
Just eat the
Yeah.
egg whites. And he's like, no, it's the yolk that got the magic in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think it is, like you said, D, doing that kind of work to understand your particular physiology and so many myths that have been perpetrated on us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think too, as Black people, when the moment we hear something that causes us to consider something outside of what we've been taught, it's automatically, no, I ain't doing all that. I ain't doing all that. Okay, well then, do you want to live or die? How soon do you want to die? You know, I mean, that becomes my thing. Like, for instance, I have a friend and he's struggling, with some stuff right now. And, I said, hey, listen, man, and I walked him through it, because it was something that I learned and I thought it would be a blessing to him. I said, let me ask you a question. I said, how much of your body is made of water? And he said, 75 to 80%. I said, okay. I said, now let me show you this. And there's this thing called the power of frequency. And it talked about, let me back up. Nikola Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets to the universe, start thinking in terms of sound and frequency. Okay, with that having been said, our bodies are made of 75 to 80% water. Water will literally respond to sound. And so depending on what frequency you introduce to your body, you will have a physiological reaction. I personally have done this, and maybe when we can put this up on a link somewhere, but there's a video that talks about the power of frequencies. And so every now and again, not every now and again, every day pretty much, I'll listen to 417 hertz, I'll listen to 528 hertz, or I'll listen to, there's one 963 hertz. And I've noticed a change in my body when I listen to them. I can be in a certain kind of mood, and I'll put on one of those hertz, just sit there and listen, and quietly, I'll feel this moving out. During prayer, I'll do that, and so there are so many different things that can affect us in a physiological manner that we have to just be open to. You know what I mean? It's like we can't just shut it down because we've never heard of it before. There's so much we've never heard of before. We want to be ready to shut all of it down. Just be open to the notion that there's something out there, that can bless you that you ain't never heard of before.
Now this I found out was true when I had the nightclub. The full moon changes the body.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Every full moon, people would lose their minds. I mean, it was always crazy because I didn't believe it at first, but I was particular on security. We used to track stuff, and it was like every full moon, it changes people. But like you just said, if the full moon changes the waves in the ocean, and we're 80% water,
exactly,
why would we think it does not affect us? And I am telling you, I didn't believe it until I got into the nightclub business, and every full moon I had to put on extra security because I knew it was going to be some madness that happened during the full moon.
Wow.
I think the frequency is a big thing too. The frequency and how the like, if you just think about general music, like if you think about praise and worship, like if everything has a mood, it has a set.
Yes.
It's like if I'm trying to find God, and I'm trying to get tap in there, then I'm listening to whatever the best worship sound is going to pull on my spirit, pull that energy, whatever it is out of me. If you want to be intimate with somebody, you're not listening to Kirk Franklin. You're just not. Sorry. If you want to, party, you're not listening to Mary Mary. You're not. You know what I'm saying? And so everything has a function and has a frequency. And so I think that we don't pay attention to how things make us feel. I know certain songs put me in a certain moods. They just do. You know what I'm saying? And so if I'm not trying to have to bend or repent for something, I'm not going to listen to that. Just real talk. I'm not. you know, versus if I'm trying to stay in a safe space, or if I want to work, there's certain songs that keep me focused. You know what I'm saying? And so when you're talking about hurts and things like that, that's a really, really interesting concept to me. The energy, and we always hear that because then you in church, you get that, oh, that's demonic. No, that's really true. That a person has the world calls it a bad vibe. We call it a bad spirit. You know what I'm saying? Whatever the case may be, something is emitting from you that makes your presence toxic. Well, you know what I'm saying? And so you feel that.
I had a gentleman that is extremely smart tell me this 5 years ago. He said that the earth has a frequency. And for as long as they had been able to measure that frequency, it had been the same. And about 5 years ago, it started increasing. And he was saying the trouble is, he said, when the earth frequency changes, people were having trouble getting back in phase with the earth's frequency, which was really an interesting concept to me. So, so to bring it back to our topic of Black men's health, what can we do as Black men to change this narrative?
I think we have to become health conscious. You know, I mean, we've had this conversation amongst ourselves after our show before, and it's like everybody has their place in society except for Black men. You know, Black women are the most educated demographic in America. White women are the most influential. White men make all the laws. Where do we fit in? And because we don't know where we fit in, then oftentimes I think that we've abandoned our place. And as we do so, we also abandon our health. And so I think it has to begin. We have to know where we fit in, what we're supposed to be doing, and then we can look at our health. But until then, it's kind of like we're not thinking about it. And so if it ain't on your mind, it ain't on your mind. We just have to become more health conscious.
I think we have to become champions for conversations like this. This past Thursday, I facilitated a conversation about mental health in communities of color. And a part of that conversation was what we're dealing with now. We have to start using the platforms that we have, whether that's church or community relationships that we have, to start having these conversations. We are always movements such as the civil rights movement and every other movement were not began because of cameras. They began as small conversations about disparities that created disadvantages for our people and for our communities. And we have to start those conversations now. We actually have to start thinking about what does it mean to transition and change? Because what I do know is that historically, the African-American community per capita spends more money on entertainment and things that don't matter than any other culture in the world.
Yeah.
So we have the money. What we lack is the understanding and where to invest it in ourselves. Louis Vuitton, the NBA, the NFL, all these factors, all these people are great people. But if you pass, you just pass. It's like if you get fired from a job, we may mourn for a week, if you pass, but your job just doesn't go right back up. We have to do a better job of normalizing conversations like this in truth. Yeah, it tastes good, but it is killing you. You know what I'm saying? Every single day. And I know I'm a soda drinker out the gate, but you get up one day, you get that sharp pain up your back and your kidney area, you start throwing more water in your system. I'm starting getting back on apple cider vinegar. I hate the way it smells. It smells horrible, but man, it gets with a couple of shakes of cayenne pepper and a tablespoon of honey, first thing in the morning to get your system pumped up, 30 days on that, your system starts to change. And we have to start normalizing this conversation. Like, how do we have to start having these conversations generationally now. And on top of that, we have to be committed to those changes. It ain't about boycotting. It's really about saying, hey, this is not good for you. It's not good for us. And It's killing us.
Right.
And we don't have time to debate. You know what I'm saying? You Big Mama, we love her greens. We love her sweet cornbread, but is it good? for the latter part of your life. So
Yeah, I agree. It's conversation as well, and it is sharing the knowledge, because a lot of this is a lot of us just don't know.
yeah.
I mean, it's real little basic stuff that we can begin to share when we talk. Like, what the biggest change my naturopath made for me was water.
Oh,
He said you got to drink half your body weight in ounces every day.
mhm,
And even, I don't know if I want to tell all my business that way, but people saying, like, if you're not urinating every 90 minutes, something's wrong.
mhm, mhm.
She had a discussion with me about bowel movements that changed everything. She said, "Are you regular?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, how often you have a bowel movement?" I said, "Every day." She said, "Just one?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Oh, you should be having 3 to 5 bowel movements every day." I never knew that.
Yeah,
I was because I had one every day. I know some people don't go, but every 2 or 3 days.
Right.
yeah,
And when she explained it to me, and then I started processing different of, she has this whole thing about poop that's amazing. I mean, white. What happens when you flush? I'm like, what? I don't want to be an expert in poop.
Right.
But we've got to have these discussions because they're critical to our health.
Absolutely.
But I love what you said about water, man, because find a black person, male or female, and say something about water, watch their face change. Ooh, water. Oh, I can't stand water. Water? Water?
Yeah.
You don't like water? That blows me away. I was telling me and my wife was having this conversation, and we were looking through the Old Testament, and we noticed that there are portions of the Old Testament that God's spirit is referred to as being water, the giver and sustainer of life. And it's like, and people don't like water. That's like the most. We were on our daughter's head because we make her get up and work out with us, and she wasn't trying to. And we was like, no, okay, you got to get up and work out with us. You got to get up and work out. And she said, well, what do I got to do? And so her and my wife, they do like little weights and stuff like that. But then we tell her, well, you got to get 20 minutes on the treadmill. I got to walk too. It's walking.
Yeah. Right.
Most basic thing. And so she's gotten on board now. And to watch this kid, get on the treadmill. But again, as Black people, we need to have these conversations about water, about working out, about what happens in our bodies, about what our turds look like, when we get up and how many times we pee in. Because, those are the conversations that are escaping our community. And like Tommy said, it's killing us. It's killing us.
Yeah. So I think we've kind of talked through a broad range of things, but particularly if there are any Black men watching this, we really want to say you got to start being conscious of your health, because if you're not here, it all stops. And so even though we make other things priority, nothing is more important than your health. All right. Any last thoughts, gentlemen?
Yes, I have one that just came to my heart. I was in prayer the other day, and I heard the Lord say to me, and I want to say this to all my brothers who are listening. The Lord asked me, he said, when are you going to be committed to your success as I am?
Wow.
And that question threw me. I was like, Lord, I'm not committed to my own success. He's like, not like I am. I'm more committed to your success than you are. And so I want to pose the question to any male listening. When are you going to be committed to your health more than anybody else?
Yeah.
The one thing that makes no sense ever is for someone to be more concerned with your health than you are.
Wow. Wow. That's real. I think I would say, listen to your system. It's not normal to have a headache for 5 days. It's not normal to not use the restroom. We are, as I said earlier, we're resilient, but we are resilient because we've had to be. We currently live in a society that may not be the best to us, but we have some form of control in our current generation over what we do with ourselves. And so we have to do a better job of managing ourselves, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, taking the time to digest everything and listen to your bodies and doing the work. And I will be the classic example and tell you, my eating habits have been horrible, and it started in college. When you have to be in the library till 12 midnight, and you walk from there to the 24-hour lab because you got a 20-page paper to write. You're so used to snacking. As a teacher, it's the same thing. I'm eating while I'm yelling. As a business owner, you're eating a banana or a granola bar or a bag of chips on your way to a meeting because you haven't had the time to stop. And we say that that's getting the bag, but it's really, really killing you. Health is wealth is really, really about you having the restoration that's necessary for you to continue the work that you've been tasked with doing. And that can't be done if you're not here, as Pastor said. So take care of yourselves. Make yourself a priority. You are your first ministry.
Love that.
And I think, like you said, that we're supposed to prosper in all areas. The Bible tells us, beloved, I wish that you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. And so what that's saying is that you're not wealthy unless you're wealthy in all three of those areas. And so while we keep looking at getting the bag and coming up economically, it'll mean nothing if you die short of your destiny. So take care of yourself. All right. Well, thank you for joining us here on The Code. We've had a great time chatting. We pray something that was said has informed you and inspired you to go and research it for yourself. Your health is your wealth. Check us out next time on The Code.